You on a
Hey, can you hear
phone,
me?
Robert?
Yeah, I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. So I'm going to pull up the schedule and I'll walk you through it and I'll get some feedback. But I put some energy into it because I really want to think of what you guys don't get to learn from me, what you don't get to see me do in real life. And it's nice when you see someone do it in real life because, you get a feel for the speed that it actually gets done at. And when you see me go and look at properties, like I could spend an hour in there walking you through answering 9,000 questions, but what I'd really prefer to do is go see a couple properties and do it at real speed, right? And show you how fast I'm going through, how I'm making decisions. Because to be honest, I don't have all the answers when I go through. I've just learned to go through them and make decisions without having all the answers because I realize that getting all the answers takes too much time. So I'm only trying to get to a point where, if the deal makes some sense. Now, if somebody comes back and says, hey, well, we're thinking of accepting your offer, I'll probably go back out and get the rest of those answers just to make sure. But I get real good at like doing things in the time that I have. I think I've told some of you this story before. When I did this emotional intelligence, they had me and a group of other guys like me, like alphas, we call, like decision makers. And six of us had to accomplish this task in 2 hours. And this thing would have taken us, I mean, honestly, if somebody would have told me to do this thing, I can't want to disclose in case you guys ever do it. I want you to have fun and enjoy it. It'd be the first time you ever heard about it. But it was an amazing experience because I would have thought it would have taken me at least 30 days to do this thing. So when they're like, you got to do it in 2 hours, I'm like, this is stupid. We'll never get it done in 2 hours. We literally, as a group of six dudes, argued about it for 40 minutes. And then in an hour and 20 minutes, we went and got it done. And what we created in an hour and 20 minutes, I would have never thought we could have done in a month if I had to bet. And I'm a pretty smart guy, so I usually have good ability to assess. But what we learned about ourselves and what this thing was about is that often, whatever time we give ourselves to do something, we will find a way to make that happen. So if we say, like, you know what, we can spend an hour at each house, we will. But if we say we only are going to spend 15 minutes at a house, guess what our brain will do? It'll start to figure out how to make good decisions with only 15 minutes. So the reality of what I want to show you is how I get in and out of houses quickly and how I search through a lot of properties quickly. I only give myself a certain amount of time because when I was new to this, I could get on the MLS and spend a weekend on the MLS. I mean, literally, there was a time where I would get on Friday night and I would just veg out, like didn't take a shower, delivering subs. I wouldn't even go get anything to eat. And it'd be like Friday night to like Sunday night. And then I come to work Monday morning, my partner, I'd be like, all right, I got 10 houses for us to look at. We go all day on Monday looking at them, real long day, legs hurting from running up, down steps and stuff. And then we'd have the agent make offers. And every week we would get like a deal almost every week. I mean, we wouldn't go very long doing this activity. The problem was it wasn't very sustainable because I would spend all weekend like figuring out 10 deals worth looking at. That same activity now, because I've had no choice, I can show you how to do that in 2 hours, like 2 or 3 hours tops. So maybe a half day, a quarter of a day it would take to do that versus, I mean, it was taking me somewhere around like 20 to 25 hours. And because I can get caught in the weeds, right? I can get over analytical. And I just was looking, I'm comping every property. I didn't know when to say no, when to say yes. So I really want to show you in real time how I look at properties and how quick I make decisions. And so that way you can aspire to be that fast, because if you can if you just took a couple of these pieces and learned them from me, you might be able to take what you're currently is taking you X time. And if you can cut it in half, that means logically you'll get double the deals next year. You can optimize this source to get you more. And that's how I'm able to get about 17 houses from MLS and 10 deals from wholesalers. I mean, I'm literally doing a lot of houses. Me and Ray actually talked about this earlier. I'm doing a lot of houses. I think about 18 months ago, really up till about 18 months ago, I wasn't even doing paid marketing. And I got up to 40 houses a year, 41 to be exact, on no money at all, just all free sources. And that was coming from wholesalers, courthouse steps, and from MLS. And that's 41 deals I got to with that. And it took a lot of work though. I mean, I was definitely learning to optimize for sure. And because I had made a decision and my coach helped me, he's like, hey man, why instead of you doing like 8 different things and doing marketing and why don't you just learn to crush each one of these things? So I started with the MLS. I learned to crush the MLS. Then I threw in wholesalers. I learned to crush that. And then I was like, okay, I'm crushing both of those. I ain't got nothing to do. And I'm like, I'm going to start doing the courthouse steps again. and I started doing the courthouse steps. I put a really strong system down for that. The courthouse steps ended up being a really good piece of the way of doing business. A lot of work, but I was able to take all that work and use VAs and systems to get it done, like, about 7-8 hours a week. Now, I chose to stop doing the courthouse steps recently because 8 hours a week is a lot. It's like virtually half my work time. So I actually decided that I'm doing 60, 70 deals. I don't need the extra 10 to 15 deals I get from the from the courthouse steps. Also, I had a lot of my money out on it. It was like, causing cash flow issues because I didn't have any private capital like Ray does and other people. So it was all my own cash. And I was finding my cash was definitely being a little depleted by buying courthouse step stuff. And honestly, I just couldn't scale away from it in order to protect it. I had to really evaluate the deals before I bid it. And so it didn't seem as scalable. I can leave this company for 2 weeks, and Rashad, with a little bit of hand holding, Rashad can do some good stuff. Delonte, Steve, they can handle stuff. When I was on the boat, Rashad did a deal, and he got my uncle Steve, who's the project manager, to look at it for me and give him an estimate. He looked at the video, and Steve's got the same skills I got because he's done about 500 rehabs with me. So, he understands. I don't usually make him do that because it's not his job, but he's on a boat. Cool. Because I knew on the boat I get no Wi-Fi, and it would all suck if I tried to do it. It would end up being a mess. So day one, I want to start day one with, like, in the morning, we're going to do our kind of talk a little bit about an hour, give a little idea of where, what I'm trying to create my business, give you an overview of who I'm using, what I'm doing, kind of like opening statements, but it'll really just be like, here's my business today. Here's what I'm hoping to grow in the next year. You guys, as you're hearing that from me, you can take any notes, anything that inspires you to make changes. Certainly you could be writing the same thing down for your business, right? Like, what is it you want to do in the next year? So you can start getting real clear about that. And some new things you want to implement, some old things you want to master, because that's really the secret, right? Before we move on, let's master what we're doing. Gerhard, actually, when we had a long conversation, I think we were talking about Airbnbs, but we got into some other stuff. And, he was like, I was giving him some new ideas, and he actually put me in my place, which was awesome. He's like, I'm going to just kind of do this one thing really well. But then at the end of it, I gave him like 7,000 ideas, and I'm surprised he didn't take the bait, man. I'm so proud of you, man. That was awesome. Because, I give him some cool ideas, but he was like, nah, man, I'm not doing all that. I'm going to just stick with what I'm sticking with. But he did end up doing some voice broadcasting along with his letters, because it's not a lot to set that up, and it can optimize your stuff. All right, just doing that's like a little extra bump, but he said no to other 45 things. We were going to start an Airbnb company. I don't even know. I think we had a nightclub in there potentially. It was some, he's like, I don't know, it's whatever, man, right? We got a tech startup. We're with the new Uber. Like, don't talk to me after like 7, man. It's dangerous. Like, it's when I'm off work then. So like, I'm not being as focused as I should be. But anyhow, he did get back. He made a great point. I completely agreed with him because, he's like, let me add one little easy piece, and he's using it now, and it seems to be working pretty well. I think he said he set some appointments off of it. So that's good news. I want to show you in real life, though, after we do the opening statements, then in real life, what I want to spend the next hour or two, maybe like 2 hours doing, is I want to get on the MLS, and I want to search with you and show you exactly my process, what I do, how I make decisions. And I'm just going to let you watch it, take notes, and don't slow me down too much, because I really want it to be as much as possible in real time. All right. And I want to take from that point on, I want to just walk through my day. Like, if you were to drop me and challenge me to do a deal that day, I'm going to try to do a deal that day. I'm going to look through this stuff, and I'm going to pick the best 3 or 4 houses. And then we're going to look at it. We're going to do a little more research, and we're going to get in a car and go see them. And then we're going to get in the car. And as we're in that car, we get in there and that deal looks pretty good. We're going to get on the phone with an agent at the property and say, hey, man, we're going to start doing a script, and we're going to have our little computer with us, and we're going to try to make it happen, right? We're going to try in real time, try to do a deal, right? We're literally going to try to do a deal right there. And then at the end of the day, we'll see where that ends up, but it'll give us an opportunity to handle like a lot of things that come up. So like Ray was talking about today, like, what exactly do we say? But we're going to see all this in real time, me talking to them, how it sounds. We'll record it with video, so that way you guys can listen to it later. Delonte and a camera guy is going to be rolling with us, and he's going to record everything so we can put it on the site for you. And then we can do it that way. Now, day 2, we're going to get into some basic scripts, and we're going to start doing some stuff where I can each thing. Ray said something about this. He's like, a lot of this is in your head, Mike. I like to get it on scripts. Well, we're going to have some scripts prepared for you, but then also we're going to write some scripts out, right? Anything you want a script for, anything you do on a daily basis, you should have a script for it. Now, There's two different types of scripts. You tell me what you like best. You can do a word for word script, or you can do what I call like a script that just keeps you in balance, which is a question-based script. It might put 5 questions in order that you should ask them, and then you have the freedom to, go and dodge in and out as you want, but you always land back at question number 2 once question number 1 is exhausted. So that way throughout the conversation, you'll get all 5 questions. I personally like to use those scripts versus the word for word script. Now, it doesn't mean I won't have some very specific lines that I practice and I write, some of the important pieces, like, hey, Ray, obviously if you could put an offer, if I could put that offer in with you and, you would know exactly how to write it, there wouldn't be any issues. Don't you think that would make a lot more sense than just pulling a random agent in who, could do it all wrong, make your life a headache? You would be doing me a major favor, Ray, if you'd be willing to write the offer. Right. I mean, we'll write that out and we practice it, and anything that you feel uncomfortable saying just means you haven't practiced it enough. Right. I mean, if you practice anything enough, you will learn to say it and it'll get super easy and you'll understand it. And if you have any questions when we're there, right, some of the things that don't feel natural, what we can do there is you can be like, Mike, that when I say that, like, I feel a little tension in my chest saying that. Like, be honest and share that, because that means if you have that resistance to it, you won't use it. Right? Or you'll use it a few times, and then less people just completely are like, that was so awesome you said that, Ray. I can't believe that was great. If they don't give you like the most amazing feedback, then you're going to ditch it as quick as possible, because you'll, in your heart, if you have resistance to it and then you get resistance on the other side, it's going to be really hard for you to stick with the script. And then what you'll find out is you'll be talking to me a month later and you'll be like, I don't know why I didn't stick with the script. So what we want to do is I always want to educate you on why specifically I'm using certain language, because there's a lot to it. This stuff seems simple, but there's a lot of NLP involved. There's a lot of years of training that I learned to say things a very specific way. What we're going to do on day 2 with the scripts is we're really going to focus on some NLP techniques, real life stuff, a lot of like John Martinez stuff, but like, what I use of his stuff, because some of his stuff's good. Some of it's a little over the top and not all that great. But day to day, I only found out about John Martinez just about 5 months ago. What was pretty cool when I looked at his stuff is like, it was all the stuff I had created over the years. I mean, most of what he's doing is exactly what I had figured out myself. The reason I love when I see someone who's considered to be an expert at something, and then I spent years figuring it all out. Well, I like that we ended up in the same place, because it suggests to me that that place is a pretty awesome place to be, and that we both figured out a really good way to make things work. And my style's very similar to his. And I actually learned a few things from him, and I never got a chance to teach him anything, obviously, but he's the expert in it. But what is missing from him is that he's not really in real estate. So, he's the expert of real estate scripts, but he don't really run a real estate business. So some of what he teaches is not 100% practical. And he has a lot of stuff, right? And I think that if you hit people with a lot of salesy stuff, you lose rapport. So my belief is you picked it, get a bunch of weapons in your arsenal, and as you're having a conversation, there'll be the right time to throw in a line or here and there, and and that compounds. When you throw a good line in here, a good line there, the overall experience people have with you is much higher, and you start to be able to get what you want. So the 3x3 that I showed you is the simplified version, which I think everyone in the group can learn quickly, and you can start realizing, and this is what I should be doing on the phone. This is what I should be doing, qualifying to go and seeing the property, and then in the closing sequence, this is the stuff I should do every time. This is my minimum. If I'm not reaching that minimum standard, then I want to work on that until I do, because if you're not doing that as a minimum standard, you're going to lose deals, and your ROI on your marketing or your MLS deals, your wholesale deals is all going to be lower. The main areas we're going to focus on is MLS, wholesalers, working with wholesalers, and sending private letters, just getting leads from private sources. They all kind of fall under the same category, and how we work those. Those 3, we're going to try to leave in that day having good understanding of what to say, how to say it, and what we would call like our minimum standard is when we're working leads. So, because if we're spending a couple $100 to get a lead, we want to make sure that we make the most out of it. So day 2, we're going to do a lot of that. And then day 3, we're going to get into the contracting stuff and talk about contractors. Again, I'm not going to go through the very basic stuff, because everyone in this group has a basic understanding and, has the ability to talk with me on a regular basis about it. But I want to get into the big picture stuff. So some scripts on when we first talk to contractors. So the big picture stuff I think I want to share with you guys for the contractors is how I market for contractors. how I qualify them when I'm marketing for them, and, you know, some standardized pricing, some standardized timeline. We'll keep those to like an hour each. And we want to just get in and do some real stuff. And by the way, on day 2, I forgot this, but we will do some role playing. So, you know, however bad we are, you know, don't worry about it. Role playing is the secret. I got really good at this by setting a time 8 to 9 every morning for about 18 months. Me and my sales team would literally just role play some scripts. We go through our scripts one time and role play all the more important scripts, take us about 30 minutes. And then I would answer questions if they're like, yeah, yesterday this person asked me this. And then if we didn't have a script for it, we'd just say, well, all right, as a team, let's start writing out the script of how to respond to that. And we would brainstorm on the best way to respond. So I have a lot of answers. There should be a good answer for anything you've come up to, because my team over 18 months running about, you know, 70 leads a week, they pretty much heard everything. All right, it's pretty much what John Martinez says he did, but obviously he did it in a shorter, I did it for like 8 years in real life, in a real business, where he went out as like a study and did it long enough to feel like he was competent. But, you know, things change over time. So he's got really good stuff. So if you've been in his training, that's awesome. That'll be good for you. What we'll be doing is similar, but we're going to do some real life stuff, because you could watch his videos 50 times. But if you do a couple hours of role playing, it's going to make a huge difference. You get an opportunity to fail, right? Role playing is all about being willing to fail. And listen, if you can't do it, if you can't pull a script out and do like Ray do it with Gerhard and feel comfortable, then what do you think the chances you feeling comfortable with a seller is going to be? Right? I mean, Gerhard's a friendly face who wants you to do well. The seller who knows what you're getting into with that person, right? They think they're in a battle sometimes. They think they're trying to win a negotiation. You just don't know, you know, Gerhard. And so when we do the role playing, we're also going to put it on easy, right? You know, you got like easy, difficult, and we're not going to be like, all right, let's ask them all the hard questions. We're going to keep it easy, because I just want you to get used to it flowing, right? I want you guys to practice it coming out of your mouth. And when you learn the scripting piece, what I want to teach you as an overall thing is I want you to understand that there can be a script for everything you do. So like for Ray and Gerhard, everyone, you guys are trying to grow a business here. There'll be a time when you're going to hire an acquisitions person. And if you have really good scripts and you know what to say and how to say it, and you've done it enough, you can start to train that acquisitions person really quickly. My old company, when I didn't have this stuff scripted out, it would take me months to train an acquisitions person. And then sometimes I'd find out they weren't cut out for it. I was able to train Rashad in like 3 weeks. Because, you know, I had it really scripted out, and I told him, here's what we do. And I got him to where he was getting results in about 3 weeks. It's the fastest I've ever trained anyone, by the way. It took Dave. I worked with Dave, my old acquisitions guy, for like 2 years, like a lot of hours too. So it's definitely more work. And that's how it is sometimes. So then day 3, we'll work on the contractors, same thing. I don't think we need to go to a house, but we're going to do an overview. But more importantly is with contractors is all about having abundance. So I want to teach you how to market for them. I want to teach you how to create a funnel, and I want to teach you how to filter contractors, because a lot of the problems that everyone in this group will have with contractors is when we know they suck, but we don't have anyone else. So we just live with it. Now, I'm not going to act like well, yeah, me too, by the way. So I just told Robert this story just a few minutes ago, but about 3 years ago when I went on my own, one of the first things my coach told me after we got past, like, you know, generating leads and doing all that, about 6 months into working with them, he's like, tell me about your contractors. And I'm like, you know, they're pretty good. They can get stuff done, but I kind of have to go out there and look at stuff. And I really started to vent a little bit, you know, but sometimes they'll tell me they're done when they're not done. He's like, okay, well, let me ask you a question. He's like, who are your best 70% of your contractors, and who's the worst? Who's your worst 30%? And I was like, oh, well, and why, right? So I started to explain, well, my 30% that's bad was really the people that made me like go out and check work 3 or 4 times, and they would say like, we're done, and they're not done. And they would make me come back 3 times. It would drive me crazy. And then even then their work would be like a 7 out of 10 versus a 10 out of 10. You know, and I'd put all this extra energy into them, and it was like I had like pulling teeth to get them to do anything. He's like, hey, what would your life be like if you fired that 30% and replaced them with some of your top 10%, like people like that? I was like, it would be pretty awesome. So over the next year, that's what I proceeded to do. I started to top grade. I started realizing that, so I created a system to get new people in, and every week I was bringing new people in, and as those new people came in and there was a superstar, that superstar would come on the team, and I would start to look at, okay, so we got to make a space for an electrician. So of the 3 electricians we have right now, which one's the worst? And, most of the time that answer is pretty easy. We'd have like, yeah, we got this one electrician, we use him, but it's just because he's cheap and he's always a headache and he leaves stuff never passes inspections. And he's negative. He gives us a lot of shit all the time. So we started not working him. Now I have 4 electricians, but man, I don't go to that negative dude until I don't really fire anyone. When we top grade, we don't have to fire people. We just stop using them as much, right? They start to get cut back some. So we use them if we need them, but we know that there's a priority. Our A guy gets used first, our B guy second, B guy third. And we really don't want to get to C's and D's unless it's just absolutely necessary and we're desperate.
Hey, how do you handle it with them whining and bitching about each other? Because, as soon as you put different ones together, they all are like coming back like, did you see this guy? He did this, and they, it is. It's like grade school.
It is. I agree. I mean, in general, right? I mean, I try not to participate in that conversation. My belief is I unfortunately enjoy having those conversations, talk to people, but being good leaders that we don't. And it's not an easy thing. I'm teaching myself that because I can get into those conversations, even privately with you guys, where we start talking crap about contractors. It's really best that we don't do that with our contractors, because if we get into that, like the best thing to say to them is, hey, listen, that guy's a friend of mine, just like you're a friend of mine. You guys are like family to me, and I really don't like to talk badly about them. And I appreciate you giving me some feedback, but let me ask you, how much of this is your opinion? And, I might just get in how much of your opinion or how much of this is like some real stuff. Is this guy doing some stuff? I would assess what they're saying, but I want them to give me feedback, but I don't want them to whine and bitch. And it's a lot of times when they're giving you feedback, they're not doing it from a constructive place. They're doing it from a like tear someone down place, right? They're being negative and talking crap about people. So I generally don't try to participate in talking crap, but if they're going to give me some good feedback, then I listen to them. So, because I want them to give me good feedback. And now I might prefer to be like, hey, you mind checking this thing for me, right? Mind checking it for me and then getting the feedback that way. But when it's unsolicited shit talking, I try to cut it out because it's not good leadership. The reason why, Gerhard, is if I sit there and talk shit about another contractor with you, subconsciously that contractor believes you would do the same thing to them.
Yep.
And it's true too, by the way, you likely would do the same thing to them. So we have to kind of set a rule that we're not going to talk shit about other contractors. We're going to take like leadership and, say, you know what, I bet he's trying hard, and they might even change their tone, be like, oh, now I look at it, maybe he didn't think this or that. Awesome. Right. And then they start to say, well, Gerhard's the kind of guy that doesn't talk shit about people. So like they'll start trusting you more and connecting with you more because they know you wouldn't talk about that other guy, just like hopefully you won't talk about them. But that's the one thing that's bad when you talk crap about people, then people wonder if he's talking crap about me. So good leadership is not to participate in that. So when you see me doing it, please call me out on it because I struggle with it too, right? I'm a very critical thinker and I see stuff and then I want to share that stuff with people. And I got to be careful of it sometimes because, it's a bad place to be. There's no good that happens there really. So I had that same issue for a long time. I have started to really weed that out in my business. And it came from me. My coach is a very high level thinker like that. And he constantly kept challenging me and saying, Mike, hey, I want you to take a little different approach. I want you, whenever somebody starts talking badly about someone, I want you to find the positive in it. And, cause you are like, basically what he told me is like, you're a critical thinker. So you never have to worry about, you'll always find the critical piece of everything. But I want you to strive to find the good in things. Cause see, breaking stuff down, me walking in a house and saying, man, this is wrong, and this is wrong. Well, that's like, I don't know. That's like waking up. That's easy. However, going in and finding the 5 things that are really awesome that they did, well, that's a challenge. That requires effort, and I struggle with that. So my personal thing I've been doing is trying to find the good in what they're doing and then have a conversation about all the great things they've done. Then it really opens up nicely for me to then have a conversation about some of the things maybe we want to improve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I did was I told the guys, I said, listen, if somebody screws up, don't worry, I'll see it in anyway, so you don't have to tell me. But also, this is a team thing, so if you see somebody does something wrong, you got to help him out because if he fails, you fail just as bad. You cannot wait for the other guy to fail. Because sometimes it's like they want the other guy to screw up and then be like, look, he screwed up. I said, well, if he screwed up, it's just as bad. Just as much your fault,
And when they do, and you're right, I like how you handled that, because if you can give them their, let them know, like, this is like your little brother, man, like, be part of the team, is you got to look out for these guys and help them. I love what you're saying there. And in general, a lot of times when people are doing that, they're doing it to take attention off of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked about the book Mindset, and anytime someone's talking about other people, they're generally a fixed mindset person themselves versus a growth mindset. So, a growth mindset person would be there helping and trying to improve, and, would be focusing on their own improvement, not other people's failures. Because you're right, we focus on other people's failures to make ourselves feel better, but it's not a really great place to be in. It's like, you'll hear me every day say I'm on the journey still, and this journey doesn't end ever. Like, I spent a lot of money on education last year, and I don't ever plan on not doing it, because I still have a lot to learn, and this is how I stay sharp. And with that being said, when I start to think I'm on this pedestal and I'm doing great stuff, I want to knock myself back down a little bit so I don't get too complacent up there and thinking I'm the king of rehabbing. And, it's just not true right now. I mean, there's so much for me to learn, and I'm going to be way better served if I'm not trying to pump up my ego, because I naturally want to pump my ego up. I think we probably all do at some level. And I know that it doesn't serve me well when I'm being like, I try to report stuff to friends and family to get feedback. It's awesome. So I don't do it anymore. I don't celebrate the wins really heavy, and I don't celebrate the losses. I don't get too butthurt on the losses real heavy. I just analytically look at them. But, I've got for a while where I wouldn't get too butthurt about the losses, but I would celebrate the wins. So I learned celebrating the wins can be a problem too, because then we crave those wins and we start to make them up almost. So the guy today, you guys only met me not that long ago, but the guy today is very balanced in the fact that you'll hear a very balanced reality from me, because I work hard at seeing things in a very balanced way. I don't want to overly celebrate. I don't want to under celebrate. I don't want to get too upset or too low or high on anything. I just want to find the balance in it. Like, day to day, things aren't going to go perfect. It is part of our business. I'll put systems together to minimize it as much as possible. And then the wins are the wins, right? I make some money. I'm happy about it. Most of the time I'm sharing it with you guys just to show you how I did it. But, not to be like I'm super cool or anything, because there's losses too. And I'll share those and be like, hey, there's some mistakes I made. Let's learn from them. I'm the guinea pig, I guess, right? I get to give you the good stuff and the bad stuff, but you're learning from that. So I don't want to hold anything back from you. So I think you have a good idea for it. You have the answer how you handle them. And, when we talk about contractors, if you want to attract better contractors, then focus on you and become a better leader, and you will attract better contractors. So anytime someone's like, my contractors all suck, I'm like, well, okay, I'm assuming you suck. In the nicest way. I might find a nicer way to say it than that, but it's pretty true. Coach of mine told me one time, he's like, if you want to attract awesome people, you have to become more awesome yourself. So if you're attracting bad people, then there's some flaw in your character that you need to work on. So that's why I went into that journey of like emotional intelligence, because I wanted to improve myself. And I will say, since I became a better person and I became more thoughtful and more giving, man, I've been really blessed with everyone that's been around me. I've been like some awesome, like you guys are all awesome, and my contractors are awesome. It's been very fortunate to have these types of people around me, but I had to come from a different place. When I first started coaching 3 years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm putting all this time in this person. Now I don't do that, man. You guys need 30 phone calls. I'm going to give you 30 phone calls, because like, I know if I serve you at a high level, you're going to do well, and that makes me happy. And I'm learning too when I'm talking with you guys, right? We're having a conversation. I'm getting better too. So it's all part of our journey, and I just have to be okay with that. And that's the only way I think I can be a great coach. I'll, probably stop me from being a multi-millionaire at coaching, because I like to give so much, but that's cool. That's my personal preference, and that's what I've chose, and that's good for everyone. I mean, it's good for the whole family, right? All of us. And that's my way of thinking. And I've read that in a Russell Brunson book. He's like, dude, give everything you got and like get results, and then from there figure out how you're going to scale up. But like, if you ain't getting the results, then don't do anything. Like, put whatever amount of time you got to put into someone. I used to think, well, if someone paid me this much money and I give them this many hours, well, now I'm real open to giving additional hours, times, whatever it takes, because I want to see everyone in this group get really good results. I'm really passionately connected to that. So I would say that the same comes true for you, Gerhard, when you're working with your contractor, and Mike and Ray and everyone, right? When you're working with contractors, don't get too butthurt if you really got to work with a contractor way too much. If you see that person improving, then, it's okay to put some additional time and do some things that aren't your duties. Like there's a lot of stuff I do with my contractors that are certainly not my responsibilities, but I get, by helping them, it helps me. And then it also helps we all help each other and we all improve together. So I do it unconditionally. I'm not expecting them to pay me or give anything in return other than their loyalty and maybe try to do a better job. And if they do, then that's awesome for all of us. And I will say that since I've taken that approach with my contractors, I've gotten a lot better result with them. And I've weeded out some of the headaches, some of the people that just weren't going to learn, weren't going to get better, super negative, run around jobs, talking shit about everyone, talking shit about me, I'm sure. And I'm, probably about everyone in the world. Well, that's not really very productive world, right? We want to get rid of that. It makes it bad for everyone. And that was a big part of why we did the 7-day flip. There was a lot to it. It wasn't, we haven't even really marketed it. You guys seen it like internally, but I barely even put that out there. But what happened with that 7-day flip was super impressive. Everyone on that flip was supporting each other, handing each other tools, high-fiving. It was an electric environment. I'd never seen contractors had nothing to do with each other. 5 different crews in there. They don't even know each other, and they were helping each other because I got everyone to buy into why it made sense for them to help each other, and they did. So if you have contractors who are talking crap, like you said, just give them that feedback. Like, dude, we're a team. Like, as a team, how would you coach him? Like, how can we find a productive way? You might have to teach some of your contractors to be better coaches and better, be more supportive. But if you do, you'll find that they're actually now helping your other guys. They're not competing. We're all family. If each of us do well, we do more houses, we grow, everything's great. And, if we have any one person that's running around doing bad stuff, then guess what? We gotta nip that in the bud a little bit. So that's the real key to it. So day 3, contractors, we'll focus on it. We'll do a lot with it. We'll go over all the important stuff, but I really just want to show you different stuff we're doing, funnels we're putting together, and maybe we'll talk to some contractors. I think that would be awesome to get an interview, a few contractors, talk with them, just get a feel for the flow of what I'm saying, how I'm saying it. You can see it in real life. I think the doing will be the mission of our 3 days. It will be just like seeing me actually do this stuff versus me telling you how to do it. Like seeing me do it and listening to a recording and then paying attention, taking notes. There's nothing like really seeing stuff. And then honestly, I'd like to see some of you guys do it too, right? I'd like to see you guys get on here and be open to the feedback, right? The feedback is the journey. I won't be perfect on these calls, either will you, but guess what? You're going to have to get over some fears if you're afraid to talk in front of people, because it's a big part of our business, right? We all have to suck at it until we get better. But the faster you're willing to put your calls in front of people, the faster you're going to get better. That's real simple math. Like Rashad didn't have a choice. We kept putting his on the groups. And he's like, oh no, really? Not really. But like 2 we put up, by the way, we got deals. So he did not do the best job, but he learned from that, but we got the deal. So does it really matter how good of a job you do if you get the deal? Just doesn't, man. Like, you don't need to be as good as you think you need to be to get deals. You just got to get out of your own way and go try. And that was one thing he did do. He kept trying. He kept doing it until he got it right. And he wasn't perfect, though, because you don't need to be perfect. Everyone on this call is capable of getting deals, and you have good enough skills to get deals right now. This is a matter of doing it, refining, and practicing until you figure out the perfect mixture, and then just repeating that once you get good at it. So that'll be day 3. Let me pull the itinerary up really quickly so I can see. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, if you have any questions, jump in too.
Yeah, Mike, I have a sales question.
Sure.
So, like, if you're on an appointment, how much does it matter, like, how good a salesperson you are, how good of a talker you are, versus just dealing with somebody who's motivated and wants to sell quickly? Like, how important is it to be a good salesperson versus how important is it to deal with strictly someone who's motivated? Like, is it sometimes like sales comes into play more often? Like, you can actually get the sale because you're good at sales, or are you finding usually the seller's just really motivated, the right person at the right time?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think there's a lot of legs to it. It's not just like a simple answer, but I'll tell you this, that if you're out there and let's just say that let's say I'm an 8 as a salesperson and you're a 5, and maybe someone newer, like Sabina's a little bit newer, maybe she's a 4, right? I would say that if we all went to 15 appointments, and we did them and we followed the systems and did it, I wouldn't get like 18 more deals than you.
I might get like 0.10% more deals. Now, over a year and doing a lot of volume, that adds up to a lot of stuff, right? A lot of houses for me because I do so much volume. If you're literally doing like 10 houses a year, it might be, I might get 12 houses a year. But when I'm doing like 60 houses, that's like an extra 10, and it's a lot of money. It's meaningful. It really skyrockets your business. So the point I'm making is that if you at least get to like a 4 or 5 where you're really competent, you're not the best ever, but you're competent enough that you're willing to go do these sales calls, you will get the results. The part that will probably cause you to get the worst results would be your own fears of doing the sales calls and sounding good and being good, and then you not actually following through with it. That's the reason that most people fail, in my opinion. What I've seen is people that aren't trying, people that aren't following up, people that are resisting the encounter because they don't feel like they're good enough at it. Well, they tend to never get results because like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And guess what? When you're not following up with people, you're not taking the shot. And when you're not going on appointments, you're not taking the shot. And that's just the reality of it. So just your willingness to go on that appointment is the bigger determining factor, right? That's the biggest determining factor. Like Dave Channon, I'm going to use him. I talked to Robert about it earlier. He's literally the worst guy on the phone I've ever met. And for like 3 months, it took him before he got his first appointment. I don't know how we kept him that long because he was a friend. I knew him. And he wasn't even being paid hardly anything. So I think me and Jay, my partner, are like, dude, if he's willing to keep doing it, let's just let him do it. Like it ain't hurt nothing. Eventually he broke through, but he was literally like a complete robot. You know, like I could have hired like a robot. The little thing cleans your carpet. You know, a little robot thing, the shark robot. Like he was basically about as bad as that machine. And he really never got much better. But the one thing he never stopped doing is he made the goddamn calls every day. And he would do it 6 hours a day. And it was like, I have no clue how he stuck with it and didn't lose his mind. And he finally broke through. And eventually he went to do like 11 deals from cold calling in 1 year because he stuck with it. Now, I almost think there was a little bit of, he was touched a little bit because like he couldn't get the drift that he was so bad at it. Like he was almost oblivious. The problem with some of us is we actually know when we're that bad, and it hurts us a little bit because we know we're not very good. He just was like on another planet or something. I don't know where the heck he was. Now, I've hired someone recently who's way better than Dave. And, you know, if he sticks with it, he'll get better results than Dave. But the bottom line is the reason most people fail at cold calling is they don't stick with it. The reason most people fail at ever getting deals on the MLS is they don't do it until it works. They do it a little bit, and if it doesn't, they don't get instant results or instant gratification, they give up on it. So your willingness to stick with sales is going to be your biggest determining factor, whether you'll get deals or not. It really won't be whether you're like an 8 and, you know, versus a 5. And the reason for this is, I'll explain a little deeper. Your average competitor is a 3. This is the best part of being in real estate. Like we all watch too much TV and think that our competitors are like Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, or like, you know, I don't know, whatever great salesperson you've seen on TV. The reality is that's not true. Your average competitor is like a 3. Your average competitor is not very thoughtful of the people. They do not care about the people. They're only thinking about them and making money. They're probably using some weird, outdated technique of insulting people and saying how bad the house is so they think they'll get a discount. I see it all the time. Your average competitor is not even calling people back. Like I've called, I don't know, 100 bandit signs and 20 have called me back. 4 out of 5 don't even call back. So your average competitor is calling, like working a job, put a letter out, don't call somebody for a week. So right off the bat, you calling them that day, you might have the deal done before the time they even call them back half the time. So know that your competitor is rolling at a 3. So all you got to do is get to a 4 for you to start getting great results. And a 4 is not hard to accomplish. When we do these role playing, we do the scripts, and if you just try and practice and you go out and keep on the appointments, refining stuff, talk with me, know that this is a little bit of a journey. You'll do it over the next 6 months to a year. You could easily get to a 4 or 5, and you can start doing plenty of deals, making money, and it will not be a determining factor. Like going to an 8 might take you another 2-3 years, and it might take you a lot of training, but you won't see a huge difference. So we only got to get a little better than our competitors. Now, obviously, when you're at an 8, like for me, I'm at an 8, so it's probably, you know, I go out and the appointments just feel easier to me, but my results aren't like crazy better. They're not triple of yours, but once you get to a 5 or 4 or 5, you know, it's yours are going to be really good. So you just have to get like a decent understanding and follow it, and you'll get the results and sticking with it. And I feel like, in my opinion, I don't like to stick with things if I don't understand them and I don't feel comfortable with them. So my hopes is I can get you a little more comfortable with this process when we spend the time in Baltimore. We'll spend like a day on it, and I'm really hoping that I can get everyone feeling, at least, okay, this is how it works, and here's some notes on how to keep following it. Maybe you'll go to your mirror, you'll practice some of this stuff. When you get there, you'll probably freeze up and forget half of it, and that's all good because that's how it works. But if you just remember to use some of it, you're going to get a better result. It's going to take you from a 2 to a 3, and then use a little more of it the next time. It's going to take you to a 3 to a 4, and you're going to quickly be better than your competitor, because the reason it'll make you better than your competitor is you're trying to get better. Most of your competitors are at a 3 and they think they're great. This is the best thing that could ever happen to you when your competitors think you're awesome. When they think they're the best ever, then they never learn, right? That's the fixed mindset. They stop learning. And that's true, because I've watched people, and I'm telling you, people do some wild stuff.
Okay, that's awesome, Mike. Yeah, thanks.
I've spent time, a great example too, to give you a little more, just one little more piece to expand on it, is Brad Chandler is like one of the biggest investors around my area. He spends $125K a month on marketing, closing 30 deals a month. And I've actually had the luxury of spending some time with the sales team and seeing what they do. And I have to tell you, I had higher expectations. I'm not going to lie. I had way higher expectations. And I guess what he really taught me is like, I thought they would all be awesome because he was doing so many deals. Well, he didn't. He just was like, I just got them okay, and then just scaled that. And that was enough, because they are all probably better than your average competitor. But honestly, most of his sales team is sitting at like a 4 or 5. Like, they are doing stuff that's not totally awesome, but they're doing.
I heard something from another investor that that really stuck with me. And he said, if your sales process is really good, like really dialed in, like you ask the right question, if you go when they have equity, right? First of all, you're very thoughtful. You're like, Mr. Seller, it's 100% your decision. You're not like you were saying, you don't tell them their house looks like crap, right? You're very, you're understanding. You want to get inside their world before you start talking like what you can offer, numbers and all that stuff. You take the time you're patient, take the time to understand the situation. But like, you can do that over the phone, is what I'm saying. You don't have to necessarily go there to build rapport, right? To go there to get the deal. You can make your process so good. He said your process can be so good where the salesperson is literally just going there to sign the contract.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, before I go, I would say that, well, obviously, if you have a mountain to climb, then you're going to be better served doing that in person than on the phone. But it doesn't mean you don't get on the phone. You're going to get that mountain mapped out. You're going to have a lot of things agreed upon. Hey, I'm going to come out on Tuesday. I'm going to take a look. I'm going to present you an offer on Tuesday when I come out. Let me ask you, if I present you an offer and you think it's fair and it works for your family, will you be in a position to accept it? And that's it. That's just that's a trial close. And they're like, yeah, I can accept it. And I'm like, oh, you don't have anybody you need to run it by. And then like, that's the simple way of doing it. It doesn't mean the deal's locked up, because like when you talk too many numbers on the phone, I've tested it both ways. And I can tell you, I get way better results when you don't try to take someone from 200 to 120 on the phone. It's too far of a jump on the phone. It also, you lose credibility, because if you're trying to negotiate someone 80K down and you haven't even seen the property, subconsciously they're thinking, well, he hasn't even seen the property. How does he know? How can I be certain? Like, he's not just throwing a number out. So I'll make some ground on the phone, right? Because I don't want to do the whole 80 there. I'll get them down a little on the phone. Hey, is 200 the best you can do? Well, maybe I can do a little less. I'll do a little negotiating. Well, like, you know what? I don't want to negotiate too much because I haven't seen the property. Why don't I come out and see it? Now, I'm just filtering that they have the ability to sell and they have motivation to sell. If that's the case, then I'm out there. I believe in going. I can tell you, in like the 8-figure group, everyone I talked to, that was the truth for everyone on high performing teams. They were closing a shitload of deals, and every one of them had that. They all agreed with me on that. They're like, we're going to see like 70% of the people. If they qualify, we go to see on every one, 70-80% if they qualify. And qualification really for everyone, we agreed, was really just that they have the ability to sell. Yeah. And they have some motivation.
Yeah, and some motivation. Yeah.
Because even if, let's say, they don't have high motivation, you go out, you might not make the offer on the spot if the motivation's low, but you easily can make your offer follow up, because a lot of times when people don't have motivation today, things change in the future, because if they don't get the number they want and they're telling everybody a stupid number, eventually that motivation gets much higher when they get stuck and they have to sell. So, they don't call us unless there's some motivation, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense. And you can tell too, right? Just from asking a few questions, if they're motivated, they've got some strong reason to sell now.
Yeah.
like, are you with John Martinez on like, he's like, the way he gets rid of maybes is like, okay, anything that's not a yes is a no. So let's, if it's a maybe, let's just call it a no. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to buy another house, right? I'm going to jump on another deal. I don't want to, let's just be honest here. Like, that what you're really telling me, Mr. Seller, like, maybe call me back in a week, I'll think about it. That's really a no. Let's just call it a no. I'll be on my way kind of thing. Are you like that too? Or will you actually give the seller like a week to call you back, or give them 48 hours to call you back?
I mean, I've given them like 48 hours, but I'm like, so the thing is, where I agree with John Martinez is that I want it to be a yes or a no. And I do love that when they're like, let me think it over. I mean, it would make sense to say, hey, listen, I usually say when they're like, well, we really need to think it over. And I'll be like, look, I get it. If I was you, I understand. I'd want to think this over too. Make sure you're getting the best price. Let's talk a little bit about how you'll make your decision is what I would say. As you're thinking this over, what are some of the things you'll be considering? And they'll start to share with me what their process is and what they're concerned about. Because really what John's trying to do, and what I would try to do in these situations, is get deeper. Like, really what he's trying to teach everyone is just don't accept, let me think it over, because you're usually dead in the water when you do that. It is important when you are in front of them face to face to get a little deeper into what's going on and get them to share with you what's happening. But I don't know if I would go word for word on that piece, because that's one of the things I've seen that he teaches that I feel like is a little aggressive. But I understand where he's coming from with it, and it's a solid technique. It makes a lot of sense. I just approach it a little softer, and especially who I'm dealing with. So if I'm dealing with a landlord, an old gritty landlord, I'm going to be like John Martinez, like, dude, let's just be real. This is not a maybe. Like, dude, this price don't work, right? Let's talk. This is all about the number, right? I would just be super straightforward. But if it's a little old lady whose husband passed away, that's like, dude, I'm not going to handle it that way. That would be a completely inappropriate way to handle it. So, it's contextual, right? We have to understand when will we do things, but, because I'm pretty hardcore dude when it's like another hardcore dude. But if we're talking like most of the people we're dealing with are in a motivated, emotional situation, and I'm very thoughtful and caring in that situation. But I'd find a nice way to say, hey, are we really just talking about price? Because usually when people tell me they need to think it over, they're really just telling me that I didn't really make an offer that was really good enough for them. Can we talk a little bit about that? Right, that's it. It's a soft way to, right? It's really soft. It's nice. I mean, I'm going to try to teach you stuff that's easy, because I feel like if sales gets too hard or it feels too confrontational, then we'll avoid it. So some of the stuff John's doing is a little confrontational, but it's all grounded in really solid techniques. I just believe soften it up a little so we can get the same result, but it doesn't feel like we're, having a fight with people.
I think he is saying that in the same vein. Like, he is trying to get deeper.
He is.
And that is a way for him to get deeper, right? He's like, okay, let's just call it. It's like going for the no. I think he calls it going for the no, right? And then you're kind of taking the deal away from them. And then, like, they're really interested. They'll actually, oh, no. What I mean is blah, 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 right?
Yeah, but that can backfire. See, this is where one of the things I'm teaching John never talks about is profiling people and understanding what profile they are. If you're dealing with like a D, they're going to tell you to get the fuck out of my house, and they're going to get mad at you if you do that.
Yeah, I'm a high D. I hate dealing with other high D.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody did that to me, I'd be like, whatever, dude, you can hit the road. And I wouldn't even answer your call because I would get offended, and I don't like to be pushed around. So, you really have to assess who you're dealing with, because the answer to your question will be very different depending on their personality profile. If someone's a high I, like I taught Rashad to do just that. Rashad was being super pushy with high I's because they hate to be not liked. They don't like anyone not liking them. So, like, as soon as Rashad was like, dude, you told me you were going to do this. And not to be honest, I'm a little upset right now because, like, you lied to me. And the guy's like, well, Rashad, I don't want you to be upset. And he's like, well, listen, man, like, you told me if I come out and, and I give you 125, you would do this deal. And he's like, well, Rashad, I got a higher offer. And he's like, well, great. Let's do the deal, though, with me. Just tell me where I need to be. And the guy's like, let me make a call. And he did a call. And Rashad was there for 3 hours and eventually got the guy to do the deal. We ended up making 10 grand on it. But Rashad had to get a little gritty with him because he was a high I. He knew he could. Because, like, Rashad called me, by the way, in between sessions. He was going to the car and calling me and saying, well, look, what do you think this guy? I'm like, he's a high I, dude. You're going to have to push him. Like, high I's will never make decisions. They like to make everyone happy. They don't want anybody to be mad at them. So You're going to have to get mad at him. You're gonna, you promised me this. And he's going to – and it worked. And it's not the easiest thing to do with high I, but like otherwise they just fluff around. They never make decisions. He did the same thing to a D. he'd probably have been wrestling with the guy, and I would have certainly never suggested that. But the cool thing about a D is if they tell you, hey, you give me 125, the deal is yours, and you come out 125, D will almost always be like, dude, yeah, you did what you said, let's do this. Because see, Ds are action takers. They like to get stuff done. They're not, they just do stuff, right? They aren't worried about like, oh, am I making a bad decision? They just do it. And that's what a high D is. They just get stuff done. So, and then you got like your S's and I's, and I's, obviously you would have to have more of a logical argument, and S's can get overwhelmed very easily. So if you're pushy and you use some of the pushier techniques that John teaches with an S, it's going to overwhelm them, and it's going to put them into, I need to think it over. But really, they just don't like to be pushed too hard. They don't like to be pressured because they don't handle pressure well. S's don't like, being put on the spot. So we have to, with S, we have more of a like, hey, I'll actually call it out and say, I know I'm somewhat putting you on the spot right now, Mike, and I hope I'm not, you don't feel too much pressure, do you? And they're like, no, you're good. All right. Just let me know if I'm at any point feeling too pushy, because I'll tone it down some. I'm just trying to get, you said you want to sell the house and you want to get this done so you can get the fund of it. And I'm just really trying to help out. And I'd love to buy your house, by the way. So obviously, and I want to make you a fair offer. So you see, I'm having a conversation a little softer, and I'm being more like white gloves with them. So the one thing that John doesn't talk about is that, because like some of his techniques could be completely wrong, used contextually in the wrong way with the wrong type of person. So it wasn't until I understood that my sales like skyrocketed once I started to apply that, because there is a different way of handling each of these people. The good news is when you listen to calls, you can quickly assess like pretty much what you're dealing with. The D's and the I's are super easy to identify on the phone. Like the I's, like, I knew as soon as I got on the phone, he FaceTimed, and the guy jumps on the FaceTime. He's like, well, what's up, man? He's like, hey, Mike, how you doing, man? I'm just drinking my coffee. I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, hey. He's like, give me thumbs up. It's pretty cool, man. I love this phone. And that was his energy. And I was like, oh, God, he's a high, right? So then 10 minutes later, Rashad's like, I was like, tell him we'll give him the 125. And then 10 minutes later, he's like, well, I also told 4 other people I could do it for that. And he's like, I don't know. I don't want to lie to them. I was like, that's a high. They're not trying to be like that, but Rashad calls him Slippery Steve because he was pretty slippery, but he wasn't trying to be. It just was his personality. He made a lot of promises and didn't know how to tell everyone that he didn't want to piss anyone off, but someone was going to be pissed off.
So he didn't want to piss anybody off. That's why he took your offer.
Yeah. Well, eventually, no, he wasn't going to take our offer. That's why it took 3 hours, because he didn't want to piss anyone else off. But he also, Rashad wasn't being tough, so he didn't feel like he was pissing Rashad off. He's like, hey, Rashad, can you just be nice? Give me a couple days. I'll definitely get back with you by Tuesday. Yep. And Rashad left, and I'm like, Rashad, you're not going to get the deal if that happens. He's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I want you to go back to the house and tell him you forgot your tape measure or forgot to measure a room or something. Wow. He goes back to the house. There's another guy there, like he's talking to. And I was like, he's like, another guy's here. I'm like, well, wait out front till the guy leaves and then go in the house. Wow. He went back out and he's like, knock, knock, knock. He's like, hey, man, you mind if I want to just measure a room real quick? And he's like, I just want to get some more details so I can get you that, see if I can get the offer up. And then he just started a new conversation. And then the new conversation, he ended up closing the deal, but it took an hour and a half from there. But I said, you're going to have to get aggressive with him. You're going to have to get him to feel like, be straight up with him. Be like, you told me on the phone if I came out here with 125, it was mine. He did say those exact words. Right. Rashad didn't want to be rude, so he never called him out on it. Right? He didn't call him out on the fact that he basically 100% said, I will give you this house if you come out. Wow. So he called him out on it, and the guy then started to change his tone, and then he still was like, but I don't want to make everyone mad. So Rashad started to give him direction. He said, listen, you're going to make someone mad, right? Like, I'm here. You made me a promise. You want to do business with me. You don't know what these other guys are about. Why don't you do this? Call the other guy and see what their best offer is and give me an opportunity to beat it. If I can beat it, then we'll do business. If I can't, then you can work with the other person. And he's like, I don't know. And he's like, here, what's the number? I'll call him for you. And he's like, no, I'll call him. And he called the guy, and the guy said, I can't go one more penny than 137. And Rashad said, I'll give you 140. And it was that simple. And the deal was done, and then we locked it up. And it took a long time to get him to do this, but Rashad just he got a little angry with him.
Oh, he had to increase his offer too, right?
We had to increase our offer. Yes, we did by a lot, but we still sold it for 150.
Oh, you wholesaled it?
Yeah, we wholesaled it because it didn't make sense as a deal anymore. Actually, we bought it high and sold it high. It was in an area where we could do that, but it didn't make sense for us. It was only like a 125 for us to rehab it.
Yeah. Did you have a buyer lined up already?
No. But it was a private contract, Mike. So guess what I was doing? I was giving him what he wanted, and I tell him what I would pay later. I was a private contract, so I gave him $1.
Yeah.
I could have never 30 days later, if I couldn't settle it, I could have just,
Yeah.
never called him. Like, yo, keep my deposit. We're all good. We decided not to settle.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have felt bad doing it to someone who was lying through his teeth so many times. So I had pretty confident I could do it, but even I would have came back and renegotiated the guy if I had to. Gave him some reason, right? And then that reason, if you just said, well, the other guy offered me more, I'd be like, well, the other guy didn't know about the problem, and now you got to tell him about the problem. And you can assume if you tell him about the problem, his offer is going to go down. And that's how I renegotiate if I have to. So, I mean, this is the most aggressive technique that I'm teaching you that I use. I rarely ever have to use it, but we have, like I will say, Rashad's done 3 deals in the last 7 months that required this level of aggression. And so they actually both deals, 2 of the 3 deals were 10K profits. The other one rehabbed. So, it's most of the time these things are pretty not confrontational. They're very laid back. They're very, I'm going to teach you to sell in an honest way so you don't have to lie, and then just package your honesty in a very desirable way. So, it does make some sense for them. And what's going to happen when you do hit them with truth and straightforwardness, they're going to sense it and they're going to like you more. It's a great way to build rapport is to be honest with people.
Oh yeah.
But just,
I think that's one of my strengths when I'm on an appointment. I'm just very transparent. I'm not like, I'm very like, this is how, this is why I need to pay this much. This is why I can only pay this much. I've got to, I've got to pay lawyers. I've got to pay financing costs. I've got property, tax, like land transfer taxes, repairs, renovations, realtors, and, and I've got to have a decent profit left over.
where do you think you could improve? Because, that's a great way to do it, by the way. Just be logical, show them the numbers, but then there's other stuff that's important too.
Where I could improve is maybe, I always felt like I wasn't a very good salesperson because like just speaking wise, like public speaking, I could improve.
The tone that you're
be more punctual. Like I've been late a few times. Maybe arrive early.
that's in your
Never
control,
helps.
by the way. That just is a choice, man. You have to just do that.
I'm 15 minutes late. That doesn't help me to win the deal, right?
I would say
I can't arrive on time. How's he gonna
that
like
again.
close on this house on time? Some people are like that.
You just fix that. That's a really bad choice to do that. So just be a half hour early and do call Home Depot if you get there early, right? And just you can do some stuff on the phone or whatever while you're in the car. You can ride comps while you're there, which is really awesome exercise. Drive for some dollars, something, but don't be late. That is in your control. That doesn't take any lessons. That's just a choice to be on time. And it says that to them too. You're right. I mean, I'm not saying every once in a while I'm not 5 or 10 minutes late.
Not always late, but like maybe like 1 or 2 times out of 10 appointments like that.
Yeah, try not to be. But if
I go in there kind of like stressed already, because I'm late, worried that this guy is like going to call me out on it or think less of me because I'm late.
Well, what you do if you have no choice, an accident, something happens, and you're going to be late, just make sure you're calling before the appointment and say, hey, I'm running a little late. Here's the reason. I truly apologize. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, that's a good.
Get there. The first thing I say to them is I don't apologize for being late because sorry for being late. I take a more positive and I say, hey, I really appreciate you being patient. Right. That's way better than saying I messed up. It's way better to point out the fact that they've been very patient. And then I'll always say, you know what? No problem, man. I get it. Like, hey, man, I hit some really serious traffic. And Mike, I really appreciate you being patient. It's a real big change in like the dynamic of like how you're thinking. It's not about you anymore. It's about them. And then now you're making them feel good about being patient.
Yeah.
Now they feel awesome. Like, oh, yeah, I am patient. Okay, cool. Like you actually gave them a compliment versus you making an excuse for you. It's a small change, but really huge benefits on that. But that's how I handle it when I am late, which is once a year. So I got a whole system for when because it gets me butthurt too when I get late. I don't like to be late either.
I think I could improve script, like a script that follow, like more systematic approach, right? More like if they say this, I do this. They say this, they play it this way. This is my next move, kind of thing. Versus kind of like fumbling maybe or not remembering.
Yes.
What the best thing to say is to that.
You don't always have to get it right. And I don't want you to think like it's a chess match. I want you to think like it's a discovery meeting, right? You're just trying to discover more about them, and you have to genuinely be interested in them, what they have going on, their problem, and you have to hold back from giving advice because, right, this is about if you could get them to self-discover what you would like to do, then that's awesome. If somehow they don't get there, I don't give advice until people have shown me they can't go there on their own. And what I used to do is I come right in and start just giving advice. And they didn't really ask me. I didn't give, if I can lead them down the path and they can self-discover what would make sense for them. If I can get them saying things like, you know, I know this place ain't perfect and you're going to need to make some money. I get that you're in business to make a profit and, you know, this is a lot of work. I'll be like, oh yeah, I just agree. Like, yeah, it's wow, you really know your stuff. And, you know, hey, tell me more about this. If I can get them saying that and I don't have to say it to them, man, it's so much more powerful if they say it than if I say it. Right. When you start, and even like with all the closing stuff and like, you know, I got closing costs, I got attorney fees and all these things, you know, you can just be like, hey, you know, there's fees and, you know, I'm sure have you done property before? Oh yeah. And they'll start, if they can get telling you about all the fees and how crazy they are, that's so much more powerful, but it requires us learning to ask questions. So a really great way to make your sales appointment a lot easier and for you not to be on the spotlight, not on the hot seat, is for you to practice about 5 or 6 questions to ask that are really powerful, open-ended questions that anytime you get a little stumbly, just ask the question, right? Get them talking. And then as they talk, ask another, do extenders. So it's like, hey, you know, Mike, tell me a little bit about this. And, oh, that's interesting. How'd you get into that? Okay, awesome. I wouldn't have expected that. Is that something you've always done? Right? You see what I mean? We're just constantly getting them to talk. And what's really interesting, when you get them talking a little and then you help them talk a little more, you might get them to go off for 30 minutes. Now, the hard part for guys like me and you is when they go off 30 minutes, we have to really stay focused and we have to listen and we want them to talk that long. People instantly like you. My best deals recently have been deals where I would tell you, I talked 5% of the time, 2 hours I'm on the appointment, the end of the whole thing. I'm like, hey, so what would you like to do? And the guy's like, well, tell me what you'll offer. And I'll be like, well, okay, I brung some comps and, you know, here's the numbers. I mean, I present it for like 2.5 minutes and I said, well, I know you wanted 200, but based on everything I've seen, the comps, I'd be about 150. And the guy's like, okay. And like, he literally told Dave on the phone, he would not take under 200. Don't bother coming out if it's less than 200.
Oh,
he
really?
took 150 just like that. And I didn't have to, it was weird when Dave seen it. He was like, dude, I'd never seen anything like that before. And I kind of gave to him, I was like, dude, I'd never done anything like that before because I don't have the patience to listen to somebody for 2 hours. But I did this time and I got very genuinely interested and he's showing me a thing he built and it was crazy. But I was trying to teach Dave that if you get there and you build rapport and you're genuinely interested, and the funniest thing he said at the end when we were signing the paperwork, he was like, what was your name again? Totally ready to, he's telling me how awesome he can tell him an awesome company. He wants to do business. He's like, I don't have to take 150, but I know you're a good guy and I want to do business with a company like yours. And like, he don't even know my name. He doesn't even know my name, but all those things he assumed about me because I listened to him for 2 hours.
But he was motivated too, right? He must
Not
have been
really.
motivated.
No, he owned the house free and clear. He was about 70 years old. He's going to move with his son in Virginia, a couple, you know, states away. And he's just like, you know, house was not in bad shape at all. Really great neighborhood. I mean, it was really clean, actually. It was a pretty great house. Yeah, he didn't have any high motivation. I mean, he wanted to sell. He just wanted to do business with me. The reason he took this discount because he was just like, you know, I like you and I don't want to, you know, I think he was able to sell cheaper because he actually didn't have a money issue. And he was selling to me more in convenience, like it was convenient for him.
Mm-hmm. He probably knew too, like 200 was not realistic after talking to you.
I mean, I have to tell you, I didn't sell it very hard. I mean, I think he could just take 150, so he did. No, I mean, you know how people are. Because I did not spend much time on the comps. Actually, when I tried to show him the comps, he kind of cut me off. So I summarized everything. He didn't even let me show him all 3 comps. He's like, yeah, man, just tell me where you're at. And I was like, all right, well, let me just summarize everything. It's about this and this. I put this much in. Based on that, I can pay 150. He's like, all right. And the power of it, which is hard to explain, it's hard to even quantify, was that I listened to him. So when you get people talking, what you have to realize is that you don't need to learn to say this when they say that. You don't need to learn techniques. You need to learn to be a better listener. And when you're a better listener, people like you more. When they like you more, they will make a more emotional decision to do business with Michael Chow because they're like, I just like that guy and I felt like I could trust him. right? And then then the old me comes in trying to use the technique I learned from Sandler training, right? And then they don't like me as much because it's all me talking to them and telling them and showing them this and doing that. And I don't really know anything about them. I knew everything about this guy. I mean, I knew way too much in 2 hours. It was kind of out of hand.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, let me go real quick. Who's this, Robert?
Yeah, Robert.
Oh, hey,
Hey,
man,
quick question.
All right, then I'm going to go to Sabina next after you, okay?
Oh, go ahead. You go, ladies first. I'll wait.
There you go. Yeah, Robert, you got to wait. Hey, Sabina, good.
Okay, hi. I just have a quick question back to the different kind of personalities we are dealing with. I believe I heard you talking about it before, but I can't remember. I would like to review that information. Do we have it in our modules, or where did you talk about it?
There is a training in the modules that I'll ask Delonte to note, but there is an actual training I did. It was about an hour and a half long where I have a sheet, first of all, that you have access to. And it's in the new resource library, where if you go in there under resources, and I'll tell you what it's called just so I can remember properly.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
I remember I heard about it, you talking about it, but just can't remember where.
I think it's under
And it would be interesting
presentations.
now, because by the time I heard you talking about it, I didn't communicate with sellers. Now I'm communicating with them, and I feel that I need to review this information.
Mm-hmm. Let me find it for you. It's good stuff. There is a training, and I'll get Delonte to denote it because it's probably a training that all you guys should do, again, just to remind yourself. It's a really big subject, and we could spend days on it. But if you listen to the training, it'll give you a good overview of it. You don't have to be perfect at it, which is the great part of this. If you just find yourself thinking about it and considering that fact, you'll start to instinctually make better decisions, right? You'll start to get a feel around when you should do this or you should do that. When you should be pushy, when you shouldn't be pushy, when you should be a better listener versus someone who takes control, right? Sometimes it's better to take control. Sometimes it's better to be, if you're with a D, learning to listen will be the way to win. Ds love people who listen to what they have to say. If you agree with everything they say, they're like, yeah, man, I hear D. Here's the D, right? Yeah, man, listen, I'm glad you came out, but I'm just going to tell you up front, this thing, I already know what my neighbors are selling for. It's like $200K. You know what I used to say to a D? Well, why do you think that, man? Because I show you like 1, 2, 3 houses that didn't sell for that. That's the worst thing you can do with a D is what I've learned. Now I'm like, oh, okay, cool, man. It sounds like you know a lot about the market. Awesome. Well, let's take a look around and, so you know a lot about the house. What can you share with me? I get them coaching me, teaching me. At the end of the day, I used to think that if I agreed with them, that I was essentially agreeing. But you know what happens with Ds? They're smart. Ds are actually pretty sharp people. So as I walk through and I ask them questions, they start to negotiate themselves a little. They'll start saying like, yeah, well, I know that they sold for 200. Now I know I'm not 200 because, I get my house needs work. Oh, okay. Yeah. How much work do you think it needs? I never tell them. They're like, well, now I know how much work it needs. It needs 60K. Now we got to walk through the house more. And I see this and that. Well, maybe it's 70K. Maybe it's like 70K. And the next thing I know, they're off to 200. They're down up to 70. And the D, I'll be like, listen, man, you know a lot about this. I'm not here to preach to you, but what do you think somebody like me who's going to take on this house that you think will sell for 180 needs about 70K in work? Now, I need to make a small profit, right? And what kind of offer do you think would be fair so I can make a small profit, right? And a lot of times they'll come up with the right stuff themselves because my experience, these are very smart people. And they just sometimes they'll try to push you into believing something, but they know when you just let them go, right? And be a good listener, keep pushing them. So that's a D, right? And that's how you handle it. But go into the training. You'll get a lot on that because it's good. I'll make sure you guys have it. I'll talk to Delonte to find it because I told him to denote that one because it was a really good one. And it was a lot to it. And there's actually a little training manual with it, which I'm trying to figure out where the heck that was. But I definitely have it there. Essentially, it's a DISC personality profile. And how it applies.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
And you don't have to get it perfect. Just start considering it and you'll start to get a really good feel for what's what. And you'll be able to, if anytime your conversation is going poorly, all you have to do is assume that you are handling it incorrectly. Right? That's what I used to figure out. When I would find that there was friction between me and the seller, then I realized I was handling it incorrectly. Maybe I was doing too much talking, not enough asking questions. Maybe I was asking too many questions and not doing enough talking, right? Depending on the person, they'll give you the feedback. So it's just having a more than one weapon in your arsenal. So when you start to see that the conversation isn't going as well as you hope, right, make a little adjustment on the fly and start maybe asking more questions or asking less questions. And that's the stuff that we find out. So yeah, I'll get it to you. It's good stuff. Hey, Robert, I got you unmuted now.
Okay. Hey, so I had a question about the comps that you say you take to the seller. How do you pick those comps that you take? Because I'm assuming if you have comps that's a non-rehab property, that they're probably at what an investor paid for, and you probably would need to get it lower than that to pick something on wholesale. So how do you kind of handle that piece of it?
So you can either give them the as-is comps or the ARV comps. I'll look at both and see which one are beneficial, most beneficial for me to give. So we closed one yesterday, and they, it's like 130K. I think we'll be able to sell it because it's a legal 2-unit in Dundalk that's, bringing in like $1,800 a month. And the house ain't bad shape at all. So we might be able to sell it for a few more grand than that. I don't know. We're taking it kind of as a favor because lady sold us another house we made good money on. But with that being said, the comps are only like 185. So I feel like the comps weren't really a good way to sell it. But I did see some as-is comps where other people paid like 135 to 140. So my number is actually lower that I'll be selling it for like 130. With that being said, if the as-is comps are strong and they make your case, then good. If you get it cheaper than that, that's fine. So with her, I actually showed her the ARV because the ARV made the best case for me. Because I'm like, look, if I buy your house for 130, I put 30K into it, I'm 160 into 185. Now that sounds like I'm making 25K, but let me show you where that 25K will go. Right? So I chose the ARV in this situation because it was, but now when I'm selling it, what do you think I'm doing? I'm choosing the as-is comps because the as-is comps are actually more in my favor. So we pick whatever works best for what we're trying to convey. Now, in most situations, I'll just use the ARV. I'll then show them the renovation cost, and then I'll show them what I'm going to pay and why, and how much I'm going to make and all that. And I usually will use the ARV in most situations. There's just some situations where using the as-is comps work better. However, I'm not going to, and I'll pick, when I pick ARV, if I think it's 200, I'll find 190 comps to show them.
Okay.
Because generally 10K people won't argue with me too much, but that 10K can make me look like I'm making 15K instead of 25K. Does that make sense? And also the renovation costs, I bumped it up 5 or 10K too. By the time we bump them both up, I can show like, hey, I'm making $12,000 on this. And really what I'm showing them, so I'm not being dishonest, I'm showing them worst case scenario. Like if I went over budget and I sold it for less than I thought, I'm really showing them my worst case scenario instead of my best case scenario.
Got it.
We'll go over that in more detail too, and I'll break down an actual presentation. You guys, I'm gonna let you guys practice it, and you'll go into groups and stuff where you guys can practice it in a group and really get a chance to work with each other. That's one thing we're gonna do on the day where we're doing the scripts is we're definitely gonna role play them and get into small groups and practice them some. And remember, what makes a script awesome is if you keep it simple. If the script is too hard for you to do, then it's not a great script. So I'll challenge everyone to keep our scripts really simple and keep them easy to follow. And we're going to really focus more on how to have a conversation, because that's the key to what you really want to learn is how do you conversate with people. And some of that will take a mind shift change, like not being so focused on I'm here to get a deal and accomplish this. Get focused on I'm here to get to know this person and figure out what they really need. And I'm sure we'll be able to make a deal if it works.
Hey, Mike, just a follow-up question to Robert's question. When do you use the as-is comps again? When you said when you're selling them, so when you're wholesaling a deal?
I used it in this scenario when I was wholesaling. I use whatever is in the best interest of me. I'll look at both, and whatever one tells the best story for me, then fine. Mm-hmm. So let's pretend I could pay 70 for a house, but the as-is comps are 65. But I'm cool paying 70 because I know I can make a really good profit. I would show the as-is comps at 65 and be like, look, I can give you 70 because you know what, Mike? I'm actually known around in the community as the guy that pays the most. So you can feel sure everyone else is paying 65. You can feel sure that when you accept this offer of 70K, that you know you're getting the most money. Because I know that's what's most important to you, isn't it, Mike? That you get the most money for the property, right? So I would use those comps then because it makes sense and it helps my case. If now I'm trying to pay 70 and then the as is comps are 80, then I would not be using those, because then they're going to be like, I mean, even if you use the as is comps, one thing you could easily do if it was 80 is you can say, but they used a realtor and they paid a realtor 6%. By the time they paid half the closing, and they probably ended up netting about 65, 70. So you could use slightly higher as is comps, Robert. I actually forgot about that. So you would be able to do that and justify your offer that way. Because it is true, if those comps are on the MLS, they did have to pay a realtor and they probably had to pay some other fees.
Okay.
And you're using the ARV comps when you're going to buy the house, when you're going to take it down and rehab it?
I'm going to look at both, and whatever one tells the story the best for me, that's the one I'll choose to use. I often will say that more commonly I use the ARV comps more commonly than I use the as-is comps.
Just because the property's renovated, right? So when you buy their property, you're going to renovate it, right?
Yes, and it's easy for me to tell that story because it's easy for me to take that comp and reduce it a little and then bump up my budget and then make it look like I'm making 15K, show them worst case scenario. They see that and then they think that's very reasonable. They're like, most people are like, wow, you're only making 15K? That's not a lot. And I'll tell them, I was like, look, if you want to make extra 15K on the house, you just have to find a contractor to do it as cheap as mine will do it and then manage them. If all things go well, you could do an extra 15K. And listen, if you have that capacity, Michael, I would recommend you do that, right? I mean, I want to see you get the most money. I'm pretty transparent. If you don't feel like doing that and you don't want that risk, then, I'd be willing to buy it and I'll take all the risk on because that's what I do for a living. So, I've obviously got good guys that I can rely on. And people are like, dude, I don't want to take that risk for 15K. Heck no. Like, no way. I don't want to manage. In the military, you remember that time when I tried to get a tulip done and it cost them $12,000? The guy ran off with our money. I mean, nobody has good experiences with contractors in general.
And also, when you show the seller your renovation budget, let's say it's 50K, do you factor in 10% contingency too?
I do. Yes.
No, like, hey, yeah, I got 10% here just in case, right? This unforeseen stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go over the budget. Unless they're a C and I'm clear they're super analytical and they start asking questions around the budget, I don't usually go through every line with them because that would be very time consuming. So I'll show them the budget, and when they see all the lines, I'll say, look, you can see there's a lot of lines here, Mike, and I really went through this in detail because I wanted to get this thing really tight and hammered in so I can make you the highest offer. So with that being said, here you can see, if you want to look over any of this, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll hand it to them. Say, here's what the budget is, $70,000. Let me ask you, what were you thinking the house would be? Right? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I was thinking about that. That's good. Or no, I thought it'd be less. And if they're like, I thought it'd be a lot less, then I'll be like, oh, well, listen, why don't we look through the line items and tell me if you see anything on there that maybe I added or you don't agree with. And then they'll look through it and they'll say, it looks all good to me. And then I'll say, okay, so you can agree if all those things are being done, those prices look fair, 70K is a good number. And they're like, yeah, now that I see all those things, yeah, I can see how that added up. Right? I'm just getting their buy-in on the number before I go forward. And if they say, no, 70 looks good, then we move on. We don't spend any additional time on it.
Okay.
That makes sense? So we either get them to agree to it, or we only fight a problem that we have. Most of the time, they're just going to look at this and say, oh, okay, wow, I can tell you really did a detailed job on this, and they'll just agree with you.
I've been doing this for a few years, like not as long as you, of course, but like even today, I still don't get why some people would sell at a discount, like 50K, take a 50K discount to sell their house fast,
Oh man, I mean, come on.
I know,
dude.
I know, but at the same time, I have a hard time.
It's convenience is the main reason, though. It's just convenient, right? I mean, the guy sold for 150. It was just convenience. He didn't do it because he needed the money. He actually was one of the few times where he was not desperate at all, but he knew he could get 200 if he did some work and he did all these things. He's just like, you know what? Mike's sitting in front of me, get this done in a couple of weeks. I don't have to worry about stuff in the garage, and I can just go to my son's house. He literally left the next day. He was like, I'm glad I ain't got to worry about this no more. And he's like, hey, can you cut the grass while I'm gone? I'm like, absolutely. I got somebody to cut the grass for you. And he's just like, it was convenient. It really is what it comes down to most of the time. Like, I sold my first house that I bought, I sold to my uncle for 60K, and my uncle sold it for 110 a year later. Right. And I sold to him. Now I knew I could get more than 60, but I needed the money right then because I'd bought another house and I sunk all my savings into fixing that up for myself personally. And I was like, you know what? I'll take 60 because I only paid 30 for it. So I was like, I'll get 30K in equity and I could use that money. I knew if I hired a realtor, but I was like, dude, I don't feel like hiring a realtor. It was the unknown, right? Of like, what, will it actually, I even get more? I thought I might. I kind of had a sneaky suspicion I could get more, but it was just my impatience made me take the lower offer, right? I mean, people do this all day long. They have a pain, and you represent that pain. The minute they sign the contract with you, you made that pain go away, and people will do anything to make that pain go away. Like they literally logically will know that they're probably taking less with you, but since it isn't money they earned, it's like monopoly money. They don't mind giving you a little bit of the monopoly money. They're all good. So they're just like, dude, I just want the pain to go away. So there's a couple reasons: convenience, making pain go away. So that's what you represent to them. And honestly, everybody, I've never tricked anyone into selling. They always just sell because it makes sense for them.
So usually if someone's pushing back too much on price, they're just probably not motivated, not enough pain.
Well, so price comes from expectation, right? There's some expectation of a price because it's attached to some dream they've created and some logical narrative in their brain, right? So when people get a narrative of my neighbor sold for 110, and you know what, my house is even better because my mom put a nice little porch on the back, and you know my house is definitely worth at least 110, and you come in and say I'll give you 90, right? You've violated their narrative, right? So now they're like, no, it don't make any sense. I thought I'd at least get 110 because I got the porch. And they're like, Michael, what about the porch? Did you consider the porch? Like, yeah, I considered it, but here's the numbers. Right? You know, why'd they get that? Well, they hired a realtor and they gave some money back, and they probably did some repairs. They paid part of the closing. When it was all said and done, they ended up netting about 90 also. So what I'm offering you is that you don't have to go on the market. You don't have to deal with all those headaches. You don't have to take a buyer that might settle or might not settle. I'm guaranteed sale. And you'll end up netting the same without all the headaches. That's why people love working with him, Mike, because I make it easy on them. And then they think about it that way and they're like, okay, that makes sense. Right? Because as long as if you break their narrative, so when people get this craziness in their head, there's a logical, like financial reason, like they owe too much or they need the money to do X, or they're, like you said, so it's not always that they're not motivated, because my belief is they call one of our advertisements, there must be a certain level of motivation. Because I think when people truly aren't motivated, they call an agent. Because, agent represents uncertainty. So when people don't have a lot of motivation, they don't mind listing because they're like, well, if it works, we'll do it. If it doesn't, we won't. But when they're like calling bandit signs and we buy houses online, I think there's like a higher level motivation just to start with. It might not be crazy, like desperate, I'll sell my soul, but it's, there's a lot of levels of motivation. But to call our kind of advertising, I think that qualifies them as somewhat motivated. Now, that doesn't mean they're realistic. It doesn't mean that the narrative they've created in their head is logical or rational at all. So our job is to go through our 3x3 presentation. This is the absolute best way to take that narrative and start to help reframe everything so that they can see with the logical facts, comps, budget, deal analyzer. That's very logical, right? Now, you might only be planting the seed when you leave that day. You might not be able to get the deal done, but you have planted the seed. And how you water that seed and turn it into a nice fruit tree is you call back and follow up. Every time you follow up, you're putting a little water on the seed, so it'll start sprouting. So the more you follow up, the bigger it grows. Eventually, you can pick the fruit. You pick the fruit, it's because you called back many times until they finally came to a reality that the stuff you said was very realistic. So that's how we win, is we go and present to everyone, and we hit them with this stuff. So because a lot of times we have to overcome, like you said, them wanting too much is the number one reason. It's the number one thing we have to overcome. Best way to do it is to go full 3x3, start to finish. Not that much work. There's 3 steps times 3. There's 3 different steps in the process. One is you get on the phone, handle it a certain way. The second is you go to the house and look at it, do a walkthrough. And the third is you present and close, right? You present and close, and you follow the steps. There's 3 steps to each of these 3 steps. That's why it's 3x3.
Which module is that? I need to watch that one.
I don't know. It's going to be in the negotiations for sure. And there's been some calls we did recently on it where there's a call from a few weeks ago that I'll make sure he names it, but it should be in the Q&A call where the whole call we did the 3x3, talked about it. Yeah, I would recommend that would be a great one for the group to watch if you guys didn't see it. The 3x3, I also would go over the one where it's we're talking about the disc, like Sabina. I'll make sure we get you those. What else would be good? Any of the contractor stuff in general, like, we have the new training. If you guys would go through the contractor module, that would be really awesome. Because that's just going to be, it's going to be helpful if you guys study up a little bit before we do the training, because that way you could spend your time focusing on doing and taking action versus like trying to learn basics.
Okay.
So the more time you spend online, the less time you have to, the more we can focus on the stuff that I can't teach you online.
Okay. On to another topic. About my purchase agreement. Not my purchase agreement, but you were recommending using a one-page purchase agreement, right, Mike? And I actually emailed my lawyer about that. I sent over, I took yours and I just revised it a little bit, swapped out the U.S. terms with Canadian terms, and I sent it over to her to review. And she emailed me back the same day and said, I don't recommend you use this because it's not as good as the realtor form. And like the realtor form has clauses that protect me as the buyer. And she recommends that I don't use the custom form because there's a lot of things that are not in there to protect me. So what's your take on that?
What do you need to be protected against, just out of curiosity?
So the realtor form, it has clauses in there against, like, if the house has asbestos, I can back out of the deal. If there's like potential title issues, I can back out of the deal. Like there's an easement that's undisclosed to me by the seller, I can back out of the deal. Whereas
so do you need all those? I mean, so in that contract says if there's any major defects in the deal, any major or structural defects, the deal is void. Do you understand what a major defect is? It's anything. You could consider a major defect to be it needs HVAC or it needs windows or needs a roof.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get out that way. There's like 3 or 4 outs in there that do protect you. The realtor one, I'm not saying that it doesn't protect you more, but you're not the person that needs protection. What you need is a deal signed up, right? You need to get them to sign that. Where you're really at risk, the biggest risk that you have is that they're going to say, I need to get a lawyer to look this contract over. That's your actual biggest risk, because that lawyer is going to be a real estate lawyer. He's going to know other flippers. He's going to also probably be in investment. He's going to steal the deal from you every single freaking time, way too often. Right. And that's just the way it is. So that's your biggest fear. Like that's what you need to protect against. And you don't have to do a 1-page, but you want to do at least a 1 or 2-page. If it's like a 10, 8, it's too much. It's going to make people want to go get a lawyer, and a lawyer is not going to help your cause. So what I would challenge your lawyer to do is, you don't have to use mine, but get her to write you a 1-page contract. You don't need.
I asked her to, and she said, no, I don't. I recommend you just use the realtor one.
Well, then you get a new lawyer, then you got the wrong lawyer, because the lawyer don't like, she's not understanding that you're trying to run your business, right? And you need to learn to run your business. Now, I didn't have a lawyer write that one. I mean, I got that from a coach, and I revised 1 or 2 things, because see, here's the thing, most stuff never goes. So when you do a deal with a private seller and you give them $1 deposit and you don't, or you give them $10 deposit. So what do you really need to be protected against? Your $10?
Yeah, nothing.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really need protection. So the only time that would matter is if you're putting big deposits down, stuff like that. You do a big deposit, that means you're probably dealing with someone who actually knows their stuff, and it would be okay to use the realtor form then, because they're not going to get freaked out by your 8, 9-page contract. But if you're dealing with a little old grandma, and when you're doing private leads, that's who you'll be dealing with a lot. The 1-page contract is more than enough, because it's just an agreement, so they think they're in contract with you. Just really that simple. It's all about getting the deal done. It's not about going to court and being protected. Like I can't tell you in 1,100 deals, I've only fought 1 time ever when a guy tried to sell it to someone else. That was it. He tried to sell it to someone else, and I had to fight him. And my contract was enough to, hire an attorney. But I don't know if I'd have went to court, I probably wouldn't have won, because it was just a contract I got offline. It wasn't this, no lawyer wrote it for me, but I wasn't going to court on this. It was enough for me to send him a piece of hate mail and get him afraid that I was going to sue him. And then we made a deal because of that. He didn't want that to happen. But our contracts aren't so we can go to court with people. They're just to make them simple. They're just to make sure we put the agreement on paper. It's clean, it's clear. So I've never had anybody challenge my contract ever. And look, you think if you have that realtor contract, they can't break that? Because believe me, most of the realtor contracts are written for the buyer right? They're written for the buyer
For
or
the
the
buyer.
seller. Yeah, for the buyer.
For the
But
buyer for the most part.
when you're the one that's in control, you're the seasoned investor. You're not the one that needs protection. The person you're buying from is the person who doesn't know anything. So you want to make sure this contract makes them feel warm and fuzzy. If it doesn't, then you're going to get a lawyer involved.
I'm going to talk to another lawyer. Yeah. See if I can
How about
get some other
this? This was taught to me
another
by
opinion.
my first coach. He's like, he taught me how to write a contract at a 5 weeks contract course. He taught me how to write a contract on a napkin. He's like, here's what you need for a contract to be valid. And he's like,
yeah, I'm kind of upset because like that's what I was looking for from my lawyer. Like I know I don't need all of this, right, to make it legally binding. I just need, what do I need? I need a purchase price, closing date, right? Like certain things I have to have. She wouldn't tell me. It's like, no,
Why do you?
so the reason, Mike, the reason that you're hearing that from an attorney is she thinks there might be some liability if she gives you that advice, right? So you can't go to an attorney and ask this question. Really, you're wasting your time trying to get the answers from an attorney. Now you're talking to a guy that's done 1,100 deals and it's never been an issue, right?
Yes.
So why would it be an issue? And in our state, it is mandatory that you use the realtor thing. If you're not, an investor, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, if you're a realtor, you have to, right?
Ours is 37 pages, by the way.
Wow.
37 pages. And like, I use that 1 or 2 page contract every time. And it does everything I need to do. An investment settlement company's like totally good. Every once in a while, they'd be like, hey, can you sign a lead paint waiver? Like, yeah, but okay. But I don't need to, because at the end of the day, I'm not living in it. So I don't really care.
Yeah, in a way, the fact that you don't have a lead paint waiver or clause, it makes your offer stronger, right? As a buyer, like you're not asking for all this crap.
General, it makes it stronger because when they're working together, I mean, there's people that do deals on a handshake, right? I mean, the old way is they'll shake your hand and be like, all right, I'll see you at settlement.
Yeah.
Your word is your bond, right? I mean, we're not doing it like that, but we also don't want to go crazy and put the eggheads in it, right? It's like getting the structural engineers involved. We don't want them involved. We don't want the attorneys involved, because the attorneys are going to tell us some crazy stuff that is not going to support our business. A business needs to be simple. You can learn it the hard way when you go pull out some 18 page, whatever it is. It's going to make people afraid. I like a contract where I'm like, hey, listen, this is a really simple contract. It's in English, right? So it's not going to be in lawyer speak. It really just says that, hey, I'm Michael Green, going to buy the house from you and your family, and here's how much I'm going to pay you, right? You're agreeing that you're going to give me a clear title, and that here's when we're going to settle. I'm going to give you a $10 deposit today. I'm going to put $1,000 in check funds in the next 3 days.
$10 is kind of low.
I do $10, but then I do $1,000 in check funds, by the way. So I can write that kind of stuff when I write it myself. A lawyer is going to be like, what is check funds? That's not even a real thing. And I'm like, I don't know. I've written it. And no one's ever said a word. And I get,
what is that? Check funds?
It's a picture of a check. That's what it means. Legitimately, it just means a picture of a check. That if they need me to cash it, I will. But I never take that $1,000 to settlement ever. I literally give the $10. That's all they ever get. And then if they ever call me out on it, which I've never had anybody do, I would take the $1,000 check to them and let them cash it. But I've never had anybody call me out on it. Because remember, this is all about building rapport. So we do this, and I'm like, and when I keep it really simple like that, I get way more like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I can sign this. Sometimes I need an attorney to look it over. But if it was 18 pages, I would get that attorney thing like 500% more often. And every time that attorney thing comes in, I'm like, my butthole clenches up, and I'm like, oh, dude. Bad for many reasons, because not only you got to worry about the attorney getting you, but guess how quickly do you think attorney's going to review the contract? Like 3 to 5 days, absolute minimum. So now what you've done is you put 3 to 5 days of other people coming in and potentially offering more, the attorney potentially sniping this out. So, you would be better to sign any contract today versus a slightly better contract 5 days later, because in that time, you're 100% going to run into a lot of landmines. You're going to lose a lot of deals. And it's going to cost you, I mean, it might cost you over a 5 to 10 year period, like $1 million making this mistake, versus like your fear of like, well, what if one day I can't get out of contract? Well, just add something in there that lets you out of the contract.
I think the main thing is, you said it early on, like I don't need that contract because I don't need that kind of protection, right?
You don't. They're the ones you have to be thinking about, right? Put yourself in their shoes. They're the ones that don't know anything. They're not the seasoned investor like you. They don't know what's going on. You need to make them feel good, because that's the concern.
Okay.
I mean, unless somebody's asking me for a really big deposit, then I might be like, look, big deposit, I need to protect myself. I agree. All right. If they were like, yeah, I want you to put a really big deposit with my title or my attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a little different story then, right? That's definitely, then I might break out the realtor contract. So you can use it, but just don't use it on old ladies.
Oh, okay. Have you ever given really large deposits, like 50K?
Held with a title company. No, I mean, I won't, no, not 50K. That's just crazy. I mean, the highest it was 10K or something.
Okay.
I think I've given some big deposits when I bought wholesale deals off of people who bought the courthouse steps and they had like a 15K deposit and they wanted me to give them that. But it's always held with the title company. I never give it to them directly. And that's when I know I'm settling in a couple of weeks. But I don't like giving big deposits in general because it messes my cash flow up.
Yeah.
But I'm also 100% certain I'm buying the deal when I give that deposit, by the way. I have no qualms. So that's another thing to consider, right? If they want a big deposit, then be more certain on your deal. If they don't want a big deposit, then you can take more risk, right? Like those 2 deals we picked up today, I think we overpaid a little, but I literally think Rashad gave the lady $10 for both properties. And the good news is Rashad probably won't even ask me for it back if we don't sell them, so it didn't hurt me none.
Yeah.
He'll actually, I have to treat him to lunch probably just to make it right. Hey, Gerhard, you had some feedback?
No, I was going to say, I mean, it sounds like you're overthinking the whole contract thing. Just use the standard one and be done with it. You have nothing to lose, you know.
Yeah, I agree. One page is the way to go. Like I don't need those like extra 7, 8
But
levels.
don't look for your attorney to validate it either because they won't. They don't understand this. You're asking them to give you their opinion. And yes, if you were to go to the trial, right, and try to see who wins, well, yeah, the realtor contracts are going to win every time. But man, we don't go to trial. That's not our mission. Our mission is that we have a handshake agreement. They understand. We want them to, you know what's going to actually, so this is one last piece and we'll move on because I don't want to be on the subject forever, but I've seen more issues with big contracts than with small ones. And the reason why is because people will come back later and say, I didn't understand everything in the contract.
Yeah, you didn't explain this to me.
You took advantage of me.
Yep.
And they will try to like fight you because they don't understand. But in the one page, I break it down like, listen, this is what I'm paying you. This is what we're settling. Are you good with all that? Absolutely. Because it's a super clear way of communicating, I have less issues of people saying I didn't understand. And they don't have even, they also, because it's so simple and there's not like, it's not like this predatory contract. A judge actually looks at it and says, hey man, he was being pretty fair with you. This is like a very reasonable contract. They'll enforce that contract more often. Because they're like, I don't see like Mr. Chow was trying to do anything sketchy here. He was like doing, it's a pretty fair contract. And to be honest, like maybe he was being pretty easy on you. But like I've never gotten to an attorney to ever hear that because all this is all just in theory. It's just about us having an agreement and using a piece of paper to write that agreement down. I use the contract when people try to back out to say, hey, we have a contract and, we agreed and, listen, I want to just do the deal. What can we do to make that happen? And they're like, oh, well, this and that. And I'm like, well, then I can talk about the contract in a nice way, but it's really more of a bluff. I don't think I've ever actually taken anyone to court and I probably never will, to be honest with you. I just don't believe in doing that. I don't think it's necessary, right? Lawsuits are distracting.
It's a waste of time, man.
The only person, there's two people win in lawsuits. It's both attorneys. The seller buyer never win. The attorneys will attorney fee you to death on both sides. And then, whoever wins will end up getting 10K and there'll be like 30K in attorney fees paid out on both sides. Someone will be all happy because they got the money. But like, honestly, attorneys are the only ones that ever win in those situations. So it's really not that profitable. And it is a big distraction of your time and energy.
Okay, cool. I'm going to jump off. I got to eat dinner.
Cool, man. All right, see you.
This is being recorded though, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. See you guys.
See you, man. Anybody else got questions?
Hey, Mike, I sent you a quick message about a HUD offer and some comps. I have my numbers worked up. I don't know if I should do a quick screen share here.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I know for HUD they got to get the offers in by midnight the day of.
This is the day you can offer.
Yeah, it just came up into investors today, and actually kind of funny. I know you said you've been known to when it's a really good deal, have a lockbox key disappear. So somebody must have gone before us because we got the code for the lockbox, but it was empty. So luckily we got HUD keys, so we still.
Oh, good.
But
how did you get those HUD keys, if you don't mind me asking?
Mafia connection.
Okay. I don't have a legitimate answer either, by the way. So Dominion, who I work with
Yeah,
here locally, they sent them to me as a gift. And
everybody has them.
Yeah, I mean, well, not everyone, not a lot of beginners, and obviously, I mean, on this call, I bet you most people don't have them, and because not everyone's got them, but like it's nice to get
funny.
them.
We got them literally our third month in business from an agent we were working with at the time. There were so many HUD properties. He's like, I don't want to take you to see all of them, and he had his wife go make a copy of HUD keys for us.
There you go. And that's pretty much what you have to do is get your agent to get them for you. You do want to get access to those HUD keys because they do work most of the time when people steal the keys. And I would say most people do not have them that aren't agents. Even a lot of agents don't have them, honestly. Like, seriously. He sent that to me as a gift for doing loans with him. And I was like, dude, that is the best gift ever. How have I been in business like 8 years and I don't have these HUD keys? I mean, I think because what I would do is just kick the door in and break in. So I'm like, now I don't have to break in and become a criminal, right? So this is awesome.
So you're not the only one that does that. I wanted to tell you that.
No, I'm not. But yeah, I learned it from other people. I didn't invent it.
Yeah, so I'll do this real quick. You'll be able to look at the comps. I'm just there's such a big spread on them. So I guess just desktop I share.
Yeah, just say share.
Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
So here's the house in question. Can I not open it? Okay. It's a little 3-1, 1,100 square feet.
No basement?
No basement. Pretty, I won't go through them, but pretty good condition. Needs HVAC. It had snow, so I'm just going to assume it needs a roof. I put in money for it. 3-1, 1,100. HUD's asking 65. It's not going to let me.
I feel like every house you show me is like, just looks like a gem compared to what we buy in Baltimore.
Yeah, okay.
You're making me realize I need to move. Like, it's like we're in Dumpsville, apparently.
So the taxes on this little house are like $7,000 a year.
I know. So you have that issue, right? You guess it's a trade-off. Your taxes are super high, but your houses are actually a lot nicer, as is. Let's see the comparables, what you think they are.
My computer started freaking out as soon as I did this.
Well, are you using just like a PC?
So here's.
Yeah. Are you using a PC?
A little desktop or laptop, a Mac.
It is a Mac? Okay. All right.
It's old. It's probably like 12 years old.
Oh, wow. You like have one of back when Steve Jobs was alive.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez. Well, that's a testament for Macs, dude. That's awesome that you got a PC. There's no such thing as a 12-year-old PC that hasn't caught on fire.
Oh, well, hopefully tonight's not the night.
No, I mean, no, you got your money's worth, man. But when you're ready, get the new MacBook Pro. They're pretty awesome.
So this is a 3-2, but this is literally the next street over. This was a 3-2, bigger square footage, no basement. It's on a crawl space.
Mm-hmm. It's really tough. So here's my recommendation. It's really tough to figure out what the second bath is going to mean.
Yeah.
So if you could find some 3-1 comps, I would. If you're going to keep it 3-1 and you don't think there's room to make it a 3-2,
it's on a slab. I'm not going to rip the floor up for 100. Yeah. So here's a 3-1 then. Now this had a finished basement, but this sold for 1-4. It's probably not going to open them.
So here's what I would suggest is I would do a longer back search and I would try to find a 3-1. What are the highest 3-1s with no basements that you can find? And that's how you can determine your price. What I would be careful of doing is looking at 3-2s, bigger square footage, basements. They don't translate very well. I don't mind doing 3-1s with no basement, but they aren't that desirable. So if you are going to do them, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. So what I would recommend, and you can always are willing to jump back on because I'm not doing much tonight and I'm fasting, so I don't need dinner. I'm taking Mondays off from food.
Whew.
Kind of make up because I got a bag of cookies on Sunday. I ate. They're delicious. They're like these homemade ones. These chocolate chip cookies get me, man. So I'm basically punishing myself. But what I do is it's okay to go like 1,000 days back, maybe like 3 years back, and then look for every 3-1 with no basement within like a half-mile radius, and then sort them from highest to lowest and start to get a feel for what some of the higher solds are for 3-1s, no basements. And where that is where you're going to really be landing on your ARV. And if you end up taking in like this 3.2 more square footage, the 3.1, but it's got a basement, man, that could be some really bad information. I mean, it could be. It might be good. It might not. The thing is, it's a variable, right? It's gonna add a lot of like, I don't know how I ended up with this number. But if you do the search I just talked about, then you're going to be pretty confident because you're going to start seeing some really like A comps. And I'd prefer if you go back farther on these because they would be A comps, right? Versus using a iffy comp that's newer.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Can you can't, I'm trying to stop this screen share. My computer's like freaking out. Can you
Let's
end
see.
it by any chance?
Yeah, I can cancel. Oops.
And I'll go research this when we jump off here because I think
I think it'll give you a different view. So really what you're asking me is when I'm not sure of the comps, how do I handle it? And anytime I'm not sure and I'm not getting clear, concise information, I just think of a different way to look at it. Often, like for this, because you have a house that's so specific, like 3.1 is something I don't love. No basement is something I don't love. With that being said, I'll do both. But I want to make sure the comps are really good for me, right? Because I won't take that house knowing that it's a little bit of an undesirable home. I won't do it if I don't have comps that really support it.
okay.
So this would be a pass if you can't find really good comps. Now, but good comps don't mean that they got to be new. They just mean they need to be good comps, even if they're 2 years old. Because your market in general has went up in the last 2 years, right? It's not really went down. I mean, actually, I know that's true for anywhere. Really,
Yeah.
There's no such thing. So if you find a comp that's 2 years old and it's pretty desirable, and you find another that's maybe 18 months old and a year old, they're all good comps. Because, you can guess that you would at least get that high number there. And maybe even a little more on a good day. So if you are going to take a 3.1, let's just make sure the comps are really strong on it. And you have no problem because it looks like a great house. I mean, what were you thinking on the renovation?
I put 30 in, but I also have in 4K for a roof.
Mm-hmm.
It could not. So I was 31.5 with a 4K contingency. So I came in like just north of 25, and basically the contingency is the roof, and I couldn't see it because it's got snow on it. So I just
so 30K is a solid number to put on it. By the way, if you're off a couple thousand here or there, it's not going to make it break you. The comps is where I would want to get right though. So Just know that get real good on those, and then you'll know where you can be with it. Yeah,
and I'll send all this to you. I'll send you the deal analyzer. For right now, I used 135, but I used 135, 30K reno, and
what was your offer?
55, I think. Put me at like a 31K profit.
Okay. So, and they're listed at what, 60 something?
65.
So the issue could be is that if you get this ARV, if you went really low on the ARV, you could be losing the deal over that. So
that's my concern, and that's what I remember you told me on our call last Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I'm being too conservative in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So
just get accurate. Really, that's the key. Get accurate with it.
Yeah.
And I think that'll make a big difference. So look at the comps, and I think you'll, if you go back a little farther, go a half-mile radius, I think you'll get a feel for what 3.1s, no basements are going for. You'll start to see a common occurrence. And if it's still 135, great, then make your offer. But if it's higher, then, that might be worth it. And if it's lower, that's something to take note of too. You got to make even lower offer.
Yeah.
But, you want to know now before you get in the deal, obviously.
Yeah,
and be real certain with it, because I want to be certain in this situation, mostly because it's not because I'm afraid of doing a deal and making 15K. I just know that I'm going to lose a lot of deals if I don't get aggressive. Like a house that's this easy, this is a pretty easy rehab. So there's someone else who's going to have a better understanding of the comps. And if it is higher, they're going to know that. They're going to pay more.
Probably the guy that took the key.
Probably that guy, right? Yeah, exactly. I hope he had good intentions to make a strong offer if he stole the key.
Yeah. Yeah, this one it's frozen, but I'll rerun all this stuff and I'll send it because I definitely want to. I know we talked earlier today about getting that third and potentially fourth property under contract. So
Okay.
this is a good little town, good location. And if we can get, I mean, HUD, you'll know quickly. I would know tomorrow morning by like 9 o'clock if we got it or not.
Yeah. I love HUD. It's easy to bid. It's a lot of good stuff going on with it. So yeah, that's look at the comps. I think you probably won't even need my advice. I have imagined when you see them, they're in the right light. That's the key is like, until you are sure, just keep looking at it differently and you'll get more sure.
And you'll really go back 1,000 days. Like you haven't found that to be like a jaded number since.
I mean, sometimes it's a little low, but
Okay.
I mean, so what's really a jaded number that can be completely inaccurate is using comps that are like 3.2s, basements when you have no basement. Those could be highly inaccurate, right? I mean, look at your one deal where you kind of did that and it was like 20, 30K off.
Yeah.
1,000 days, in my experience, worst case scenario is that, like, I don't know how much things have went up in the last like 2-3 years, but you know, it's not going to be real far off. And if I can find the exact same house, for me, that's the closest thing to me finding out like what my house should sell for, because someone else did it and kind of told me. And so what I'm really looking for is a 3.1, no basement that's been renovated. That would be amazing if you could find that.
Okay.
If you can't though, then you will have to go back to making some decisions. And I probably would lean on a little more of a conservative side to be safe. You know, you have to start making educate. What did the other houses sell for, by the way, that were 3.2, just out of curiosity?
So the 3.2, that was on a crawl space. And so no basement on a 400 square feet bigger on the next street over.
Mm-hmm.
That sold for 179.
Okay, fair enough. So that means your number makes sense. How about the one that was 3.1 with a basement?
That was 3.1, 850 square feet, above grade and a finished basement. That was on a main road and that sold for 140.
Okay, I mean it does have a basement, but
yeah,
it's on a main road. I mean that's pretty nasty. So yeah, I don't know. I mean those are pretty. Those leave me confused too, right? So that's the thing. Like it's leave me confused too because you're picking the wrong comps. So go and keep searching until you find comps that don't confuse you. Okay. I imagine if you go farther back, you'll. So I mean, I'll stretch things out. I've looked at things. Where I don't go is where it starts to get weird. Is if you go back to 2008, 2007, it gets really weird. But I literally will look at comps that are anywhere from like 2011 and up, 2010 and up even. I've went that far back because I'm still going to just see if I have an odd house, I find it more valuable to see what the same odd house sold for any time in the last 7 or 8 years, because the market's been, it was worse 7 years ago. So if I see something sold for 145, like a nice fixed up 3.1, no basement sold for 145 5 years ago, I would have a good expectation I could get 145 now.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And, and it would help me right now. You don't have any real comps. So you're just making a wild guess of how what they mean to what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. Let me know. I'm curious.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions before we go? Cool. I will let you know we got more happening, but I think we're going to have a great 3 days. I'm really excited about it. We're going to break some stuff down. I'm going to get everyone's going to have their own binder. We're going to, where we're going to try to take notes, and there'll be some post work after our training for you guys to start trying to map your systems out and really build out everything. But we should be able to answer a lot of questions. For the analytical people in the group, I'm going to tell you, roll with it. We got 3 days. I'm squeezing a lot in. So you might not want to ask every little question, but write down the questions and is what I would actually recommend. And you could always ask them in a call after. So we can focus on doing stuff in real time, doing stuff in real life. And, because we can't do that on call. So it's awesome when we have stuff like this. But we want to make sure we get through it all and get some of the really important stuff. Because, way we just don't dig too deep into stuff that we could talk about on the phone if we need to.
Okay.
All right, cool. Ray, let me know what you come up with. I'm curious now. You got me curious what's happening.
Yeah, no, I'll go dig in because I got to get that offer to them.
Cool. I'll talk to you guys later. We actually do have our group call tomorrow, our normal group call for the group call members. So some people are in the groups, and so we have that call if you guys are ready for it. And that's tomorrow at 5:30. Or actually, it's not. You know what, Gerhard? So you're usually the main guy in that. I was going to see if we could move that to. I probably could do like 5 o'clock if that's okay.
For tomorrow, that's fine.
Okay, I'll let Jay and everybody else know because I have a meetup tomorrow. What I didn't consider is I do have a meetup once a month on Tuesday, so I'll probably just move the meetup because the call is more important than the meetup. And but I have a meetup, and I was like, crap, that's bad timing because it starts at 6. So I'll work it all out. I'll get on the call. I'll call in, and we'll be able to go over everything.
Okay.
Awesome. So we'll do 5 o'clock tomorrow. I'll let everybody else know. All right, everyone. Have a good evening, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks.